pyramid of death that would have housed the remains of more than 5 million people to a unique skyscraper that would be completely invisible from the ground? Or what about an insane canal megaproject that would have cut through the entire state of Florida? Ambitious megaprojects were never constructed. Is that actually the case? What if there was another way? That's exactly what a group of Mexican architects and engineers envisioned back in 2010. A 300-meter skyscraper that, instead of scraping the sky, would instead be scraping down beneath the Earth. This is the Earth Scraper. This insane megaproject was planned to be built right in the historic center of Mexico City. More specifically, directly below the iconic Zocalo, which is home to the country's national palace, as well as many other colonial-era landmarks. Because of its historic and cultural importance, there's actually a law that bans any building in the area from going over 8 stories in height. This makes it basically impossible to build any skyscrapers envisioned as a 300-meter deep inverted pyramid that would plunge 65 floors below the ground. From the surface, the entire plaza would look almost exactly as it does today. The only change being that there would now be a reinforced glass floor embedded into the square. This allows natural light to make its way down the entire structure, while preserving the plaza on the surface. But with a depth of 300 meters, it's probably going to be really dark, especially on those bottom floors. From the inside, the Earth Scraper looks surprisingly just like any other high-rise, with floor-to-ceiling glass panels as well as massive steel columns that line the walls on all sides. Once you look down, a vast open atrium stretches all the way down to the very bottom, which honestly sounds a bit terrifying considering that people could be living down on the bottom floors. But despite its promise of creating a unique skyscraper unlike anything we've ever seen before, the Earth Scraper was engineering challenges were just too much for the project to be feasible. For one, digging more than 300 meters below what is quite literally the middle of the city is a massive logistical nightmare. The foundations of surrounding structures would have to be considered before any construction could even begin. There's also underground cables and pipes that all would have to be rerouted, and we haven't even begun talking about the potential historic artifacts that could be unearthed during the excavation. The whole of Mexico City is actually built on top of the capital of the ancient Aztec Empire. Preserving these ruins and artifacts could pose yet another hurdle that would make construction even more difficult. There's also the problem of earthquakes, which are pretty common, as the city is located in a seismically active zone. The entire structure would have to be reinforced to withstand up to magnitude 8 or even 9 earthquakes. Today, even though the Earth Scraper was never built, it still left behind an important idea. With cities getting bigger and more crowded, we're going to need bold and creative designs like this one to shape the future. Moving on to another ambitious pyramid that was never constructed, we have the Metropolitan Sepulchre, for up to 5 million people. Back in the early 19th century, London's population was booming. Thanks largely to the Industrial Revolution, the city saw its population explode from around 1 million people at the start of the century to almost 6 million by 1890. And as the city continued to grow, so did disease and the overwhelming problem of finding a place to bury the dead. Cemeteries and burial grounds became so overcrowded and unsanitary that it actually became a serious threat to public health. Because of this, an architect by the name of Thomas Wilson came up with one of the most insane and radical proposals the city had ever seen. His idea was to solve London's burial crisis with a single monumental structure that would have been the tallest man-made structure in the world at the time. A giant death pyramid right in the middle of London. Different sources claim different things, but from what we've gathered, the structure would have been roughly 400 meters tall. The Death Pyramid was proposed to be built in a fairly central location, right on top of Primrose Hill. The structure itself would have been divided into thousands of burial compartments, which are stacked along the pyramid's inner walls. At the center, a grand staircase would spiral all the way to the top of the pyramid, where there will be an obelisk and an astronomical observatory. In theory, this one single structure would have been able to hold as many as 5 million bodies, a number that would have dramatically reduced the need for burial grounds in the city for an extremely difficult task. The megaproject would also have been super expensive to build. Estimates at the time put the cost of the entire construction at around £7 million. In today's money, that's actually more than just a bit too grim of a picture for most Londoners. Instead, London eventually solved their burial crisis with the creation of many new, smaller cemeteries around the city. Moving on from pyramids that were never meant to be, let's now head over to an ambitious bridge proposal that's been floating around for over a century. The idea of connecting Britain and France via a bridge over the English Channel is nothing new. In fact, the earliest known concept of a bridge between the two countries dates all the ways across the Channel. In the 1980s, discussions surrounding a permanent link between the two countries resurfaced, and two of the many proposals submitted to the British government included some form of bridge over the English Channel. The first one was called Euroroute. Starting in Dover, a bridge would take motorists to an artificial island just 5 kilometers off the coast of Britain. From here, a 20-kilometer underground tunnel would then emerge to yet another island near the French coast. Finally, another bridge segment would continue to France for a total driving time of roughly 30 minutes. The second proposal was called Eurobridge. Unlike the previous plan, this proposal would consist of only one continuous bridge. Constructed 7 of these proposals never came to be. What would eventually become the Channel Tunnel, or the Chunnel that we know today, was the proposal that was ultimately chosen in the end. But why wasn't a bridge ever built? And why did they choose the Channel Tunnel over all those other proposals? Well, it all comes down to the English Channel itself. As the single busiest waterway in the whole world, any crossing within this narrow corridor would have had to have been high enough for massive cargo ships and tankers. The world is on a different level entirely. Ships would inevitably be delayed, and maritime traffic would severely be disrupted during the construction, fog, and heavy storms, all of which makes the construction, maintenance, and daily use of a theoretical bridge even more difficult. On the other hand, an underground tunnel completely bypassed all of these challenges. A bridge between the United Kingdom and France could still be built today, as we're already capable of building even longer bridges. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, for example, stretches an incredible 55 kilometers across the Pearl River Delta, a length that is significantly longer than the narrowest point in the English Channel, Roosevelt Island, the narrow strip of land located between Manhattan and Queens. Today, it's a pretty quiet and unremarkable island that's mostly known for its scenic tramway views and riverside parks. But back in the early 1900s, this was probably a place that you wouldn't want to visit. It was home to an asylum, a smallpox hospital, a prison, and plenty of housing for the poor. Basically, the island was used as a place to isolate the city's most vulnerable and located in a place that was too far removed from the actual heart of the city. Because of this, he envisioned Roosevelt Island, of all places, as a new civic center that would be more accessible and central than the current one, completely transforming the notorious island into a grand municipal complex. The centerpiece of his vision was a monumental neoclassical building that would have been 7 blocks long and 100 in the entire area. Probably the most interesting part of this design are the bridges that would directly connect the island to the rest of the city. George even planned for one of the bridges to pass right through the central dome of that main building. It was in fact built in the area, but it was actually constructed over the island instead. In the decades that followed, Roosevelt Island remained an isolated place that nobody really wanted to visit. In fact, it wasn't until 1955 that the island finally got its first direct road connection to the rest of the city. If George's plans had actually been constructed, it would have dramatically reshaped New York City's urban landscape. The surrounding borough of Queens probably would have developed into a bustling urban area in the same way that Manhattan did. The planned bridges would have turned the island into a key crossroads between Manhattan and Queens, and Roosevelt Island itself probably would have become one of the most iconic spots in the entire city, forever defining New York's skyline in the same way that the Empire State Building or the Statue of Liberty has done for so many years. Finally, let's now shift our focus south to Florida, with an ambitious megaproject that could have completely changed the geography and economy of the entire region. This is the Cross-Florida Barge Canal. The idea behind this megaproject was surprisingly straightforward. By cutting directly across the Floridian Peninsula, the canal would have created a shortcut for shipping between the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. The canal would begin on the Atlantic coast near Jacksonville and follow the St. Johns River all the way south to the city of Palatka. From here, a series of dams, canals, and natural waterways would eventually lead the route to the Gulf, near a town called Yankeetown. In total, the entire system would have spanned 180 kilometers across the entire state. The canal would have saved vessels as much as 3 days of travel time compared to going around the peninsula. It would also have increased the efficiency of trade routes, boosted Florida's economy, and Trans 5.
It pleases me to report to the people of Florida and the nation that the long-sought Cross-Florida Barge Canal is now well underway.
Over the following decades, the project would be started, stopped, and restarted again multiple times, primarily because of environmental concerns. Giant swaths of land were cleared, and a few sections of the project even managed to finish construction. By the 1970s, opposition to the canal was starting to grow, as people started to realize just how much damage the canal would cause to the local environment. Conservation groups warned that the project would cause irreversible damage to the surrounding ecosystem. Finally, in 1990, when around 28% of the project had already been completed, Congress eventually deauthorized the entire thing, sealing the fate of the Florida Canal as a project that will likely never be completed. Today, all that's left of this ambitious plan are a few scattered remnants. Partially dug channels, old bridges, crumbling support pillars, and abandoned locks and dams can be found along the canal's route. But the story of this megaproject doesn't end here. With the canal project already abandoned, the state of Florida eventually found a use for all of the land that was now sitting cleared and undeveloped. Just a year after cancellation, the instrumental in the opposition towards the canal project. Today, this 180-kilometer greenway hosts various trails, parks, campgrounds, and recreation areas all along the route of the old canal. What began as a stalled megaproject has now become one of Florida's largest recreational greenways.